start keeping your data secure yet accessible in just a couple of moments. You should be hearing the audio stream through your computer. And if you are not able to, you can also select telephone and dial in by phone. If you feel like chatting into us, you can let us know in the question panel where you're joining us from today, and then we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. We're going to keep everybody muted on the line today except for our panelists. So hopefully people are hearing me. If you take a moment and just let me know to confirm that you're hearing me, that would be great. So Paul says he's in New Jersey and weather is interesting. Yeah, we've heard a lot about some interesting weather happening all over the East Coast and Southeast. Lots of places that don't normally get 16 inches of snow that are getting piled on. So I hope you're all doing all right out there. Nancy in Minneapolis, thanks for letting us know you can hear. Same with Kim. We appreciate that. We're going to get started here in just a moment. I'm glad that people are able to hear. And you should be seeing my desktop as well. Okay, sounds like somebody might have just unmuted, so I'm going to make sure that everybody's on mute before we begin. And I'll go ahead and get us started here in just a second. So thank you, everyone. If you're just joining us, this is Keeping Your Data Secure Yet Accessible. My name is Becky Wiegand with TechSoup, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Thank you for joining us, and I'll take just a moment to do a little bit of housekeeping. If this is your first webinar using GoToWebinar, that's the platform that we're using today for this webinar, definitely take note that you have a couple of different options that you can use. You can use this little orange arrow to close the little dashboard panel on your desktop if it gets in the way of seeing anything on your screen. You can also select the mic and speakers, which is what should be automatically selected for you so that you can hear the audio through your computer speakers. If you're not hearing the audio, you can also select telephone, and that will populate with some dial-in information that you can use to participate today. We will keep all lines muted for the duration of the webinar with the exception of our panelists today so that we can make sure that we get a nice clear recording to share afterwards. You can ask us questions throughout the webinar just by placing your question right here, and we have folks on the back end who will help respond to those. You just click send when you're ready to send that, and we'll chat back with you. You can also click right here to raise your hand to let us know if you have a question or if you need help with anything. If you lose your internet connection, feel free to reconnect using the link that was emailed to you earlier this morning, about an hour ago. And if you lose your phone connection, feel free to redial with the phone number that was sent out in that reminder email. Again, your audio should be playing through your computer speakers. So we are recording this webinar today to make it available on TechSoup's website along with past webinars. You can view them at TechSoup.org/community/events-webinars. As I mentioned before, you will receive a link to this presentation with the included materials and a link to the recording. If you're tweeting today's event, feel free to use the Twitter hashtag TechSoup or @TechSoup so we can chat with you. Again, my name is Becky Wiegand. I'm an interactive events producer here at TechSoup. I've been with the organization for 5.5 years as a writer, blogger, manager of our blog team, editor, and now managing the webinar program. Prior to that, I worked for 3 different nonprofits in Washington, D.C. and in Oakland, California, where I was the accidental techie, having to come up with solutions to our day-to-day problems, even though it wasn't technically my job, as so often is the case in nonprofits. We'll also be joined by Cameron John, who is an expert with ShareFile, and he works with their product marketing team at Citrix, and also Emily Mason and Tina Larrick, who are both on staff at the nonprofit who's going to share their case study with us, Project Hope. And all of them are snowed in various places in the Southeast. So let's hope their lines stay strong for us throughout the webinar. They're all joining us remotely from snow caves. And then we also will have on the back end, assisting with chat questions, Michael Pittman from Citrix and Ali Bazdikian from TechSoup. So feel free to let us know if you have any issues or questions, and hopefully we'll be able to respond to you throughout. For our agenda today, we'll be doing a brief introduction of TechSoup. Then we'll do a quick poll to have an understanding of where you're at right now with sharing files. Cameron's going to give us an introduction to ShareFile, and then give us a little bit of a demonstration of some of the features that he thinks might be most useful and interesting to nonprofits and libraries. Then we'll hear from Project Hope about how they've used ShareFile successfully and kept their data secure, yet made it accessible to each other on staff and the people they work with. And then we'll hear a little bit about the Citrix program through TechSoup, and of course have time for your Q&A. Feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar, because we will be grabbing those for you. And we'll try to answer them throughout, but again, we'll also have time at the end for additional questions. So quickly, who is TechSoup? We are a 501c3 nonprofit working to connect fellow nonprofits, charities, public libraries, and foundations with tech products and services and the learning resources to use them. We've been around since 1987, and we've served a lot of organizations, distributing more than 11 million software and hardware donations in more than 60 countries around the world. Read a little bit about our impact and some of the new things that we're doing at TechSoup. We now have consulting services available for organizations that may not have day-to-day tech staff. We also have the newest Windows 8.1 and QuickBooks 2014. So it's a great idea to check back regularly if you're interested in getting technology donations to see what we have available in our latest product catalog. And this is our homepage where you can find us at TechSoup.org. Now before we go ahead and get into this, let me go ahead and open up the real poll for you so you can take a moment and let us know what you think. Go ahead and click one of those buttons on your screen to tell us how you currently share large files. So if you have big video files, for example, or large PowerPoints like this presentation that you need to share, how do you currently go about sharing those? And for online service, we just kind of created online service as a big Dropbox option because there are so many out there. But if you'd like, you can feel free to chat into us what you use just to give us an idea of kind of where you're at. And this will help our presenters tailor a little bit about what they're talking about based on what you're currently using. So I'm going to go ahead and close that poll, and it looks like 62% are using some kind of online service, and 31% are using email. And we have some folks saying that they use Dropbox or Huddle or Google Docs. So a lot of different things out there. So thank you for taking part in that poll. With that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Cameron John, who's going to be joining us from Citrix's product marketing, who is an expert in ShareFile, to talk about how you can manage your data, doing it securely, and sharing your files. So thank you so much, Cameron, for joining us. I'm glad to have you as part of the program.
Thanks, Becky.
Thanks.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm glad to be here with you today. I'm dialing in from sunny San Jose, so I feel bad for some of my East Coast colleagues and some of you guys in the audience that are snowed in. But I'm based in Raleigh, and I'm through some stroke of luck, I ended up in California today. But what I'm going to talk to you guys today about is how do you manage your data? In today's organization, whether it's a nonprofit or a private sector company, we're overwhelmed by data. There's tons of it floating around, and if you are in certain sectors of the nonprofit world where security is an issue, this could be mission critical. So I'm sure a lot of you folks in the audience have sensitive files, whether those are your accounting records or your client's medical records, whatever it may be. I'm here to talk to you guys about how Citrix and ShareFile can help you guys manage your data, get it organized, and make it easy to access and easy to use. So we brought with us two of our customers, Tina Larrick and Emily Mason from Project Hope, and they're going to share with you their experience about how and why they chose ShareFile and what they like about it. And I'm just going to give you a couple of quick ideas about sort of the vision of ShareFile and what we can do for you at the highest level, and then I'll turn it over to Tina and Emily to talk about real-world examples. So if we could move the slide forward. So what is Citrix? Or I'm sorry, what is ShareFile? In a nutshell, ShareFile is a much more secure version of some of those consumer file sharing services that are out there. So what I wanted to share with you guys today is why should you consider using a secure version of a file transfer service rather than some of the free ones that are out there? Now, the free ones are doing interesting things, and they're built for specific use cases. But you got to be, if you're running a nonprofit, you have to be confident your data is secure. So here's a quick checklist of things you should look for when you're evaluating file sharing tools. Some of you have file sharing tools in place. Some of you don't. Some of you might be looking to switch. So these are probably the top 8 things that separate ShareFile from the rest of the pack, and things that you guys need to look at from your organization's perspective. So we're talking about encryption. Of course, you know, most of these services are encrypted. But if you pull back the covers and look a little bit deeper, you'll realize that not all of them are built the same. Reliability and scalability, of course. But on the right-hand side, it also has to be easy to use. So it's not just that it's super secure for the IT folks in the audience. It has to be easy to use for the end user. Because if it's super complex, basically no one's going to use it. They're going to go back to using their preferred solution that they've always had and are comfortable with. So it has to it's got to be encrypted, it's got to be secure. You have to have really tight control for your admins. And you got to be able to look back at the records and see who accessed what file, when, from what IP address, from what email address. So ShareFile gives you all that. It's the built for business version of file transfer. Next slide, please. So if we can drill deeper into how specifically we do that, the topic of mobility always comes up. We all live in a mobile world. I do. I'm on my phone all the time. I'm on my iPad all the time. I'm sure most of you guys work from wherever inspiration strikes and wherever your team needs you from. That could be an airport. You could be snowed in somewhere. It could be the beach if you're vacationing. All kinds of different places. So you want to be able to access and get work done on your mobile device, right? It's not enough to just have the ability to open up your laptop from anywhere. Well, sometimes you don't have your laptop. Sometimes you're at Starbucks, and you need to open it up on your mobile device. So you got to be sure when you're evaluating these file sharing tools that you can do things like remotely wipe the device. If you, heaven forbid, leave your iPad on the subway and your iPad has all the financial records from your nonprofit inside of it, you got to be confident you can remotely wipe that anytime that happens. So if you did, for example, leave your iPad on the subway, you could remotely wipe that from the ShareFile website, and everything that's stored in ShareFile would be instantly blanked off. So it gives you peace of mind and confidence to know that your stuff is secure. And then you should also look at best practices, things around passwords like two-factor authentication. How easy is it for the admin on your file sharing account to control it? You know, for example, Michael Pittman and I, we know each other very well. I might give him unlimited access to all my files that I share with him. But someone who I just met, or maybe a new partner, a new client, I don't know them that well, so maybe I'll just give them read access. Maybe I'll just let them download the stuff but not upload it. So ShareFile gives you very detailed controls on what the user can do. And then you got to think about things like session timeouts. You got to make sure that if you have if you access ShareFile from your mobile device, that it's not just permanently open. So if you do lose your device somewhere, somebody can't just click on it and get access to all your stuff. Or, you know, if you look at it from less of a security risk standpoint, we're talking about kids. You know, if you have a child at home and you want to let them play with your work iPad, you want to make sure that your file sharing account is not easily accessible with a couple of clicks. You want to make sure that there's a password on it, or that your session times out, things like that. Because heaven forbid your 3-year-old clicks a couple of buttons inside your file sharing app and he just deleted everything, or he just sent it all out to the public, or, you know, sent it to the New York Times. So lots of things to think about on the security and the mobile device management world, and we can help you with all of that. So next slide, please. Yeah, and if you guys have any questions in the audience, feel free to interrupt me. It's totally okay. Don't keep your questions to the end. You can raise inside of the little GoToWebinar endpoint. There's a little hand, and that means raise your hand. So you can either send, we can unmute you and you can ask the question you want, or just chat it in the window and we'll take care of it. So this slide is kind of funky looking, but basically what it presents is the Dropbox problem. I know everybody's heard of Dropbox, and there's a tug of war going on in the private sector as well as the nonprofit world around what users want and what IT needs. So the users want to have easy to use file sharing. They want to share stuff with anybody. They love consumer file sharing apps like Dropbox. But on the IT side and on the nonprofit side, people need security. They need to know that their files are secure. They need to have the utmost control over them to make sure that only the right people are getting access to them, and only for the right amount of time. And you want to make sure that there's no data leakage coming out the back door. So I know we have some IT-focused people in the audience today, and this should resonate. So many of you probably have Dropbox running on your network. Most likely the people that put it on their computers didn't ask permission. They just did it because it's easy to use. So what we see in the ShareFile world is a lot of data leakage, and that's one of the main ways we get business customers that have left some of the more consumer file sharing tools, is because they realize they have this data leakage going out the back door, and they have no control and no visibility. So they've built up a very robust network of monitoring and control around their secure data that sits on premise. But what happens if there's a bunch of holes in the back door? Like it means your IT network ends up looking like Swiss cheese, and that's not secure. And as we all know, the IT manager, that person's job is on the line. If there's a breach of data, that person probably might be sanctioned. That person might even lose their job. And if we're talking about regulated industries like healthcare, for example, there's civil and criminal penalties involved. So IT security gets really hairy really quick. And I won't spend too much time here, but Dropbox problem, we can help you with that. Next slide, please. Here's a little bit deeper on the rest of the platform and what we do. And this is my last slide, and I'll turn it over to the folks from Project Hope. So basically the answer to the Dropbox problem from my perspective and the industry's perspective is ShareFile. That's the one. This is the one you want to go to. Why? Because it's secure, it's easy to administer, and it's customized for the industry problems that you have, or the nonprofit problems that you have. So we cover all platforms, PC, Mac, all mobile platforms as well. It's business class. You can dial in access however you need it. So you can give your people access to the mobile work styles. You can enable them to work the way they want to, not just the way you choose. So with that, I don't know if there's another slide, but what I wanted to do is take a quick second and show you guys how it works, rather than just talk to you about some ideas. So Becky, is there another slide talking about ShareFile? I don't think there is, but if you could make me presenter, I'll show you guys 2 minutes on what the heck is ShareFile.
Yep, you
All
go
right.
ahead. You should be. Thanks.
Got it. Okay. So here you have, this is my for real ShareFile account. I live my life in here. When I took this job almost 2 years ago, and I was a pretty heavy Dropbox user, and I pretty much just grabbed everything out of Dropbox and put my whole life in ShareFile. So personal life, professional life, all my wedding photos are in here. So this is my real account. So what I wanted to show you is our super simple interface. There's not a lot of noise in here. It's just what you need to get done. So what I wanted to show you today is this folder for clients. So I set this up beforehand to give you guys an idea of how easy it is to get files into ShareFile, share them and collaborate with your team, and then dial in access, and how you can save yourself some time, some headaches, and some money. So you don't have to use things like FTP or mailing hard drives around to people or faxing things. So if I open up this folder, and so you can make, inside of ShareFile, you can make an infinite number of folders. It doesn't matter. We give you and your account as many folders as you want. It doesn't matter. So if I was going to share this folder with my friend Narit, what I would do is I would click here on folder access, and I see that I've already invited my friend T-Pain, and he has download access. I can get alerted whenever he downloads something, whenever I can let him upload things, but maybe I also want to let him delete things because maybe I trust him and it's an important project. So it's a very detailed way to dial in access. You can apply permissions to all the subfolders that live underneath here. You can add users manually, type in emails, or you can add them with a distribution group from your Active Directory system, or you can add people from your personal address book, your address book instead of ShareFile. So it's super easy to set up a folder, start collaborating, and just get your work done. So that's the folders. So if I was going to set up a folder, super easy. And down here it shows you who's got access to what. Now if I was going to upload stuff, this is something that our nonprofit customers really appreciate. So if I click on here, this is a Java uploader. You can drag files in here, drag and drop them. But the real important factor here is that it has auto resume. So what does that mean? It means if you have a client that's out in the middle of nowhere in the jungles of the Amazon where their connection speed is super slow, they can drag in gigabytes and gigabytes of data, and when they have a good connection, it'll upload into ShareFile, and when the connection drops, it'll resume. So rather than spending hours or days on a slow connection trying to upload 50 gigabytes of data, ShareFile just does it for you. So there's other services out there where if the upload stream is interrupted for some reason, you're stuck. You have to start all over again. So if I was going to drag, let's say, how about this one? So if I was going to drag this file into ShareFile, drag it, upload, and there it is. And I can start, and then I start collaborating on it. So now it's in this client folder, and if I want to send it, there's multiple different ways you can send and share things. So you can send it with the web application of ShareFile. You can ask people, I want a copy of this for my records. I want to require people to log on with an email and password, just to make sure that somebody doesn't, just to make sure the files don't get into the wrong hands. So you can send things through the ShareFile web interface, which is important for nonprofits because it takes the file out of your Outlook Exchange. It sends it through the secure ShareFile SMTP server, meaning your Outlook Exchange servers are getting unburdened. So you can send it through here, or if you want to, you can send it through whatever service you want. Say you don't use Outlook, you can copy this secure link, put it in Gmail, put it in Yahoo, put it wherever you want to put it. So that's something that our nonprofit customers really like. And I'll show you one more thing, and I'll get on to our featured speakers today. So unfortunately, I'm on a Mac, and we don't have an Outlook plugin for this on the Mac, but on the PC, there's an Outlook plugin. Oops. It sits right in here, and you can just click it, and it sends your secure file that way. So forgive my messy inbox, but there's an Outlook plugin, and I wish I could show it to you right now, but I'm only on a Mac. So one other thing that our nonprofit customers really like is the sync engine. So you'll see here, I have Dropbox. I use all of them. But ShareFile sync engine sits right here, and it syncs in the background. It's super easy. You set it up. You tell it what folders you want to sync, and it just does its work. It sits right here in the background, and that's it. So, for example, if I wanted to send this, you just right-click on the file, copy it to your clipboard, and then put it in your email service. So there's multiple different ways that ShareFile respects your workflow. Depending on, we respect the way you want to work, and we make it easier for for the workflow that you already have. So we don't assume you want to rearrange your workflow, do everything differently. We give you the tools to work the way you want to, whether it's a mobile device, desktop platforms, Outlook plugins, whatever you want, we can help you with that. And with that, I will hand it back to our featured speakers today. So Becky, you can go ahead and change presenter.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Cameron. So I'm going to go ahead and take control back of this screen. Thank you for sharing that. Really interesting stuff. We did have a couple of questions that came up, so maybe before we pass things along to our folks from Project Hope to speak, we could address a couple of the questions that came in. So one person asked, what is FTP, since that was on the poll, and I was remiss in not defining what that is immediately. You might have a better ability to say
Sure.
what that is than I would, so I'll let you take that one, Cameron.
Sure. FTP stands for File Transfer Protocol. It's basically 30-year-old technology. So what it does is it connects your servers to someone else's servers who wants to send stuff to you. The problem with FTP is it requires IT management. Someone has to take care of it. They have to groom it. They have to clean it out. And they have to dial in access for any new client. So basically, it's a big pain in the butt. And we help people get rid of or quit using FTP all the time, especially in the nonprofit world.
Great. We also have, so a follow-up question to that. So is FTP a VPN? Lots of little acronyms there.
File Transfer Protocol, I don't think it's the same as a VPN, which is a virtual private network. A virtual private network is like a secure little tunnel that you create between your laptop and the stuff that lives behind your firewall in your office. So FTP, the thing to take away is FTP and VPN, both of those are 20, 30-year-old technologies. The world of technology has evolved. ShareFile is leading that charge, and there's much easier ways to do things now.
Great. We also had a question that came in that, you mentioned if you work as a health service agency, for example, and you have client data that's regulated, and you have to manage that securely. So Barb is asking, what about HIPAA compliance? So HIPAA is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. I think that's maybe what it means, something like that.
Yeah, health. I forget what it stands for, but it's basically the super severe regulations that cover healthcare. They're very onerous, but Barb is asking stuff that's right in our swing zone. We fully support HIPAA compliance. We fully support technical compliance with the HIPAA security rule. We have tons of collateral and websites about that. We just released, it's called the ShareFile Cloud for Healthcare. I won't spend too much time on it, but basically it's a segmented enclave inside of ShareFile only for protected health information, and we launched it a couple months ago to target our clients in the healthcare vertical. So we can help you with anything that's regulated data. We fully support HIPAA. There's another one called FINRA in the financial space. But basically, all of our files, all of the files that are stored in ShareFile and sent through ShareFile they're encrypted at bank level encryption when you upload them, when they're resting in the ShareFile cloud, and when they're downloaded by your clients. So we take security very seriously. Citrix is a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ. We live and breathe security. We do it all day long.
Great. So, if you work with healthcare health clients or have, children whose medical records you might have access to and you need to share that data, you're likely under the auspices to some degree or another to some of the HIPAA compliance requirements. So if you need HIPAA compliance, you may already know that, but if you don't know that and you do deal with health information of your user base or your clients or your constituents from your community, then it's something definitely to pay attention to because, like Cameron mentioned, you are liable for whether you are compliant or not. So that's great to know. We do have a couple of other questions, but I'll go ahead and move us along and we'll save those for the end. Feel free to keep your questions coming in. In the meantime, we will get to all of them today. And I'd like to go ahead and bring on our next guest from Project Hope. So this is one nonprofit's experience talking about how they've managed and shared files. And I'd love for you, Emily and Tina, to please join us on the line and tell us a little bit about Project Hope before you jump into the ShareFile stuff. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm Emily Mason, an IT support engineer with Project Hope, and we are a nonprofit humanitarian health aid organization. And our headquarters are here in Virginia, on the East Coast, buried under snow right now. And we have a pretty broad area that we work with. We're in have offices in over 30 countries around the world. And we send medical supplies, we train doctors, nurses, we set up healthcare training and education programs, like I said, in over 30 countries around the world. And Project Hope has been around for over 50 years, actually, of a very long history. And that's a little bit about Project Hope there. I've been with Project Hope for a little over 5 years. And prior to becoming customers of ShareFile, we've been with ShareFile coming up on almost 4 years. We didn't have an integrated solution for sharing big files and managing transfer. And so that was a big issue, and just trying to come up with a consolidated solution was basically my task. And I worked with Tina. She's my supervisor, the IT director, and she is on the call as well. And I guess my first slide is I'm going to talk about our individual needs that we had at the time when we looked at ShareFile, the different options we considered, and why we went with ShareFile. And on the next slide, I'll talk about how ShareFile met all of our needs. So like I said, we've been clients of ShareFile for almost 4 years. I think we looked at them starting in the spring of 2010, and I worked with a sales rep named Jarrett and got to know him very well. And we had a long list of issues, and a lot of our needs at the time were kind of varied based on international communication and domestic with vendors and third parties. But in a nutshell, we do a lot of work with staff in over 30 countries, and they have unreliable and slow internet connections. In some countries, dial-up access. Everybody loves dial-up access. And despite that, they needed to be able to send large files without having to worry about losing that download if they lost their internet connectivity. We also send very large confidential financial documents, so we wanted something that is secure. We have a couple different divisions. We have the Project Hope, and we also operate the Health Affairs Journal publication. And so we wanted something with professional-looking branding and something that gave us a unified organizational-wide access. One of the other needs that we had was we also wanted to be able to request files from other people without having to create login accounts for them or giving them too much access to our network. We also needed to be able to maintain administrative control. So me and the IT support department, I needed to be able to support everyone and make sure that it had easy-to-use features so that our users aren't uploading too many files or not using the tools correctly. It was crucial that it be simple and easy to use. We are not an IT organization of a bunch of software programmers and developers. So we're global health experts, and we needed something that was easy for us to use so that we could get on with our work. So some of the problems that we had at the time were that our employees were using random third-party freebie websites to send their large files, whatever they could find online, sendbigfiles.com or different things like this that I'd never heard of. And they'd have pop-up ads and banner ads. So we had some pretty major security concerns, and also management. Some of these free sites, they were free for 30 days, and then they'd expire. So you'd have to sign up with a new account after 30 days. It got kind of silly. So we were definitely looking for something to get us off of that disparate platform and give us something that was unified. And email wasn't really working for us. We have, like many organizations, a email attachment size limit of about 10 megs, And so if you're sending big files, you really can't use email for that. And we were doing a lot of shipping CDs, shipping hard drives, trying to send files internationally. It was very expensive. And long process, getting stuff through customs, sending files, receiving CDs. It was a lengthy, time-consuming process. So let's see it. On the next slide, so we actually, at the time, this was spring of 2010, we looked at a couple of different solutions. We looked at Box.com, and we looked at UseSendIt.com. And I actually set up trials for our staff, and I said, you know, tell me which ones you like. Let's look at these. Let's look at a couple different ones, and I want your feedback. It was really important to me that this not be a solution that was just great as far as the IT department thought, but also the end users, the field staff, the international staff. This was something that they could actually jump on, that they could get excited about. So some of the ways that this has really worked for us, I'll give you an example, a couple of examples. Our webmaster, she uses ShareFile quite often. She sends a large video and picture files. Our website is nothing if not lots and lots of video and pictures of where we work and how our organization is impacting people around the world. She also uses that Outlook plugin. That's huge with her because it's an easy integration. So she's in Outlook all day long. It is super easy for her to just use that Outlook plugin to send the files around. As far as our field users go, a lot of times they're looking for software programs that we need to send them, whether that be our antivirus program or Microsoft Office. We can upload that whole program to ShareFile and then send that to everyone, and they can simultaneously download it wherever they are in the field and grab it. So this is preventing us from having to ship a CD and mail it to them or find out when one of our other employees may be hopping on a plane and going to Uzbekistan the next time around. So this is very simple for us to use. Another example of how this has really helped us is our accounting staff sending QuickBooks files internationally. Using ShareFile, it cut the amount of time for our finance department to close. Each month, it was taking them about 2 weeks to do financial close, and now they're closing in about 6 days. So this was a huge time savings for us. One of the other solutions that we really love about ShareFile is that we can request a file from a person, even if they don't have a ShareFile account. The request a file option is huge. One of our employees will simply log into their ShareFile account, click a link to send an email to that person. They'll receive it. They can click the link to upload the file, and then they get email notification when it's been received. It's super easy to not only send files, but receive files with this. And also with that is that our employees can create client accounts. So if you do want client users to have a login and have a restricted access, our employees can create their own client account for the third parties that they're dealing with as well. So from my aspect of it, being IT support engineer on the back end, I love the administrative aspect of it. It's super easy to manage accounts. Navigating the web interface is very streamlined and very simple, which is one of the reasons we preferred it over Box.net. I felt like that interface was a little more clunky, a little harder for our users to navigate compared to ShareFile. And I know this was touched on earlier, but that auto-resume download has been a huge time savings for us as well. So if our field users are on a dial-up connection in Uzbekistan, and they know for a fact that it's going to take a day to upload a huge file over a dial-up connection because dial-up is slow, they know that if they start that dial-up, they can walk away, and ShareFile is going to auto-resume if there's any hiccups with their internet connection at all. So they don't have to start back from square one and upload the file all over again. It's very streamlined. So that's a little bit about how how we've been pleased and very happy with ShareFile. Like I said, we've been clients with them for coming up on almost 4 years now, and very happy with the service. It's just adoption in our organization has just grown and grown. And actually just this week, our CFO approached Tina and I about using ShareFile to distribute our board books for our board meetings that we have 3 times a year. So we're finally hopefully going to go paperless with our board books and distribute board materials to our board of directors with ShareFile, as opposed to producing and distributing these massive board books for our board meetings 3 times a year.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that, Emily. That's really helpful. So how has adoption been so far at Project Hope? Have you found that the people that you're working with on staff that, you mentioned one of the other tools out there was a little bit clunkier to use in the interface. Has it been adopted pretty widely by non-technical staff too at Project Hope?
It has. It really has. And I'm an IT support person, so I know FTP, but our users do not know FTP. They're not familiar with it. They love the web interface. They love the Outlook plugin. They love being able to access it, whether it's from home or in the office, Mac or PC. The platform doesn't matter. And I think because I got our users interested in this from the beginning. I got their feedback right out of the gate. And I was just pulling up one of the comments that I had from one of our communications department employees when I had asked her for her feedback on ShareFile when we were demoing it. And she said, "Hey, Emily, I just spent a little time trying out the YouSendIt and the ShareFile sites, and I have to say that I prefer ShareFile hands down. The interface is easy to use, the site is secure, and the recipient gets an easy-to-read and easy-to-follow email when the file is available. And the download time of my file was just mere seconds." So she said, "Thank you."
That's great. That's really helpful to know. So Miguel asks, can you collaborate can you collaborate on one file having multiple users look at it at the same time, or is it really just meant for that delivery for large files?
We do collaborate as well. We can create root level folders to where multiple users can upload and download files and communicate in specific folders that are relevant to a topic. I've not had any experience of 2 users being in the same file at the same time. I would say there's probably not too many platforms that would allow that, just from an IT perspective. And we do have, and you can set time limits on your files. So, for instance, in our case, we've set 90 days as the quota for our files in their file boxes, but that is absolutely adjustable depending on what your needs are. So in our case, we're not using it for long-term storage. We have our file servers and our backup systems for that. So in our case, we're using it for some short-term collaboration and for directional transfer, either sending and receiving.
Okay, that's helpful. And then you mentioned how the back-end admin is really easy to use, and so you have one admin account, and then about how many users are using that to share files with one another? Like how many people on your staff do you think are actually using that account, or do you need separate accounts for each of them?
In our case, we actually have 4 admin accounts for IT staff so that everybody can get in and manage it. So there's about 4 IT staff that will do it. And then as far as employees using the system, we went ahead and purchased licenses for everybody. We wanted everyone in our organization to be able to use this. We didn't want people to have to share logons or find somebody who has an account. We wanted everyone in our company to kind of have a take on this platform. And so we have, we created probably about 200 accounts, if I had to guess, and we've probably got maybe 75 people using that. It's going to depend on the employee's role, for sure. We have people who are using ShareFile every day, 20 times a day. And then we have people who are using it once a quarter to send financial documents. And then we've got people who are stumbling across it and, oh, this is great, didn't know we had this. And so the range depends, probably primarily based on the employee's role in the organization and what their needs are.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So Cameron, actually, if I could bring you back on the line just for a second to kind of piggyback onto the account question. So, Emily mentioned that she's got 4 admin accounts and then they've set up access for 200 other users who are within the organization. How does that work? Not necessarily like how to actually set it up, but how does that work within, say, like if you have one admin account, does everybody have to use that login if you're wanting just a small group of people, 3 or 4 staff, to have access to it? Or do you have to purchase separate accounts for each person, or how does that work?
No, not at all. We've thought this through very carefully for situations just like this. So if you you can give anybody inside the account admin access. So if I'm the admin on my account, I just bought one, but I need to give admin access to my CFO or my administrative assistant, whoever that is. You can give anybody you want administrative rights to your ShareFile account. So it's super easy to administer. The admin just sets there's an admin tab inside of their ShareFile account, and inside of there, you can give detailed access to whoever you want. So if you have internal people that need full admin access, that's great, easy to do. And if you have a bunch of people in the field who just need to upload stuff or to send stuff to you, but they don't need to, create new passwords or create new accounts, all that stuff, then you just turn it off for them.
Great. Sounds kind of dreamy. So before we take a few more questions, I'm going to go ahead and quickly advance through some slides just to talk about the Citrix program here at TechSoup for anybody who might be interested in it. So TechSoup and Citrix has joined to present this special discount program for eligible U.S. nonprofits, charities, and public libraries. There are a variety of products available in the Citrix discount program, from GoToMyPC, GoToMeeting, GoToTraining, GoToWebinar. We have a question about kind of how those sync up, and so we'll get to that in just a moment. And also ShareFile. You can learn more about the donation or the discount program at TechSoup.org/Citrix. And if you're not registered, it's a good idea to do that so you can access discounts and donations from a variety of different product vendors, like Citrix. And there's information about those restrictions on your screen at TechSoup.org/restrictions/Citrix. And basically, organizations that have a budget of less than, I believe, $10 million can access the discount through Citrix, through the TechSoup program. And that enables you to get ShareFile. You pay a $10 admin fee to TechSoup, and that's basically a small fee to help us administer programs like this webinar today, and also to administer the validation services that we do to ensure that only eligible organizations can receive the donations and discounts through our site. So that $10 admin fee gets you access to the discounted rates, and ShareFile's discounted rate through TechSoup is 50% off of the retail price, which I believe is about $360 for the year for an annual subscription, and that's for the life of the program. So you only need to access that once to then get that subscription on an annual basis. So that's a little bit of information about how to get the program. If you have other questions, feel free to type them in the chat window, and I'll just go ahead and move us forward to a couple of other ones that we had come in. So Cameron, here's a question for you about how we know ShareFile is a fairly new addition to the Citrix family of products. So how does it integrate with other Citrix products like conferencing and collaboration, like GoToMeeting or even GoToWebinar, the program we're using today? Is there any integration features?
Of course there is, yeah. So ShareFile has been in the Citrix family for about 2 years, I think. So we get asked about integrations all the time, and we're certainly doing more. But right now, the way ShareFile integrates with the collaboration product, right now, so inside of GoToWebinar, if you select, like we're recording this, right? So I want to be able to send that huge video file out to all of you attendees. So if I was going to set this webinar up, you can make the webinar recording save automatically into your ShareFile account. You pick which one ahead of time, and then after the webinar, you just right-click on that file, or it'll be in the web interface in ShareFile, and then you can send it securely. So you can send up to 10 gigabytes securely with one link. But it's not just that you can send the link. You can then track who uses it. So if you wanted to do this for marketing purposes, you could require it could be a lead generation tool. You could require people to put their name and email in, and then before they get access to the download. So it's not only access for your community or your clients, but you can also use it for a marketing tool. So that's GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar. The other cool thing that I like about ShareFile plus GoToMeeting on the iPad app, some of you guys might already have GoToMeeting on your iPad. There is a button inside of once you have GoToMeeting up, there's a Share With button, right? You click it, and you can share files from ShareFile, push them directly through ShareFile while you're inside of GoToMeeting. So there's pretty deep integrations with the collaboration products. Now, ShareFile also integrates with things like Podio, which is our project management platform, which is really cool, and it's great for the nonprofit world because I think you get up to 5 seats for free. So you can go try that one out, podio.com. But ShareFile is such an integral part of the Citrix portfolio these days that it also now integrates with Zen Desktop, Zen App, Zen Mobile, and Citrix Receiver. So a lot of that is product jargon, but anybody that has those products, you guys know what I'm talking about. They're very large enterprise-sized deployments of virtualized desktops. So ShareFile is pretty deeply integrated into the whole portfolio, but we'll be doing more integrations as time goes on.
That's great. So we have a couple of other questions that came in. So we have this question from Nancy, who writes in that we are a very small nonprofit. We're in a transition process, and we've been using Quicken and just purchased QuickBooks. We just purchased a building and now have part-time staff, so they're really a small but building and growing nonprofit. She's the treasurer, and she works mostly from home. She does most of her input from home and would like to produce reports from the office. Is this something that this product would be able to help her do? So if she's producing stuff at home and they're big reports, could she be using this to sort of access between home and office, or sharing them with an accountant who's off-site or with the other staff person off-site? Does this seem like a product that might be good for them? And she says, we have no servers, just laptops.
Perfect. Okay. Well, one, you don't need any servers. Don't worry about that. But there's 2 ways to answer that, and both of them are yes. The first one is, Nancy, ShareFile integrates with QuickBooks, so you can sync your QuickBooks files up and down into the ShareFile cloud and then send them through that web portal or your Outlook plugin if you want to. The other way to do it, we have a product called GoToMyPC, which is the industry-leading remote access tool. So it creates a secure little tunnel into the computer that lives in your office. So if you wanted to access that from your laptop at home or your mobile device on the train, wherever the heck you are, you can use GoToMyPC to get into the computer that lives in your office. So you can do it using the cloud with ShareFile, or you can do it using the hardware that you already have. So your office PC plus your laptop that stays at home.
Terrific. Very handy stuff. So we have a couple of other questions. So Graham asks, can users collaborate concurrently? So can they synchronously edit something like a Word or an Excel file?
That's a great question, Graham. We don't have that in ShareFile right now, but we are building it this year. So right now, all you can do is preview a document, like bring it up and look at it. You can't edit it. So I think what Graham's asking about is sort of Google Docs style. 4 people edit the same document at the same time. We don't have that, but we're building towards it. Now, that said, you could use Google Documents to do your collaboration in real time, and then you could send it via ShareFile so that it's secure and that so that you can track access to it and use it for marketing purposes if you want.
Great. And he also asked, do you support file revisions and restoring deleted files? Like, is there a way to roll back if you've changed something or deleted something by accident?
Yeah, we have unlimited version. It's called versioning, so you can get access to any of the other versions of it. So, you know, if Nancy and I are working on a document, maybe it's a long contract, I save my changes into ShareFile, she saves her changes. Both of those documents have the same title, so what happens? Don't worry about it. We take care of all that. So if you want to look back at yesterday's version or 2 hours ago version, it's all there.
Terrific. So we also have a question from Paul who asks, is there a limit to the number of users based on the license?
No. So you pay for a plan. It could be 2 people or 10 people or 20 people. So those are the people that you would, in theory, give admin access to or not. And then, think of those as like the people inside your organization that need pretty deep access to ShareFile. So those are your internal people, and those are the people that you pay for. When you're collaborating externally with your clients or prospects or new partners that you're trying to sign up, whatever those may be, we give you an unlimited amount of external collaborators. So we encourage you to share. We want you to collaborate with people outside your organization. And so, for example, if you send a file or a folder to someone who's not in your organization, they don't need a ShareFile account to access that file or folder. They can just click on the link and get whatever it is you sent to them.
Great. So we also have, I'm going to just hop back to a slide here. Sorry, you're seeing some of my screen back here. That's way back in the slides. I wanted to show really quickly. So TechSoup's ShareFile account discount rate is actually, I think, limited to 10 users. And I think that's for those maybe 10 like admin level or internal users that you'd want to have access to or give access to. So keep that in mind. If you need 200 licenses, then you may need to go through a different route to get that through Citrix. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at the details on this system, on this page on our site that has all of the details. You can look at the description, the system requirements, and the rules and eligibility restrictions, just to make sure that it meets your needs. We also have a question in these last few minutes. We have a question asking how many levels of admin can you have? Can you have somebody who's like the head office, a country office, a branch? Can each manage their own users, yet globally manage the rights of those users? How much permission and role playing can there be?
You can play as many roles as you want. So in ShareFile speak, what you're talking about is something called a super user. So there's usually only a handful of admins on the account. That's the person with the power to turn off the account or pay the bill or do, you know, turn off ShareFile or turn it back on. A super user is kind of what you're describing. Country manager, but that person needs to set up their team with ShareFile seats. Head office type people. So yes, you can do that too. And if you do pursue ShareFile, it's something called super user. So when we give you that customized training for you and your team, ask them about super users because that's what that is.
Great. Super user sounds like a fun title. I'd like that printed on a plaque, please. Yeah, it does. I like that better.
Like video games.
It's true. So we have just a couple of minutes left, so I'll take a couple of other questions quickly and then we'll wrap up. We have a question around disaster response. So for all those people who are snowed in today and can't get around, can you talk a little bit about how ShareFile can be used to help keep your organization moving along, even if you're in crisis mode and some big disaster or emergency has taken place? Any examples of how ShareFile can come in handy for that?
Sure. We get this all the time, especially from our customers who, you know, maybe they're in a very snowy part of the world or disaster-prone part of the world. So, two things. We have a package called the Totally Mobile Office, or the paperless office, and it gives you ShareFile plus GoToMyPC, which is that remote access thing that I talked about. So basically, what you would do is you'd store your organization's files, every last one of them, inside ShareFile, and then everybody who needs access to it can get access to it. So whether your West Coast office is having a drought, but your East Coast office is closed due to snow, everybody can get access wherever they are. Or your field teams, maybe they're in a disaster-stricken part of the world. Maybe we're talking about, you know, the floods after the Fukushima disaster in Japan. People can still get access. As long as they have an internet connection, they can always have access to their ShareFile account. you can also use the GoToMyPC tool for accessing your computer that lives behind your office, or sorry, that lives behind your firewall. So we
That's
get this
great.
question all the time, and frankly, whenever there's bad weather, we get a lot more business because this is what we're built for.
Yeah, people realize, like, oh man. Well, and at TechSoup we have quite a few resources on ensuring that organizations can provide continuous service through disasters. Many of the organizations that work with us provide immediate disaster response and help in emergencies and things like that. So we want to make sure that they can stay up and running. So we always recommend the 2x2x2 rule, where you've got 2 copies of important critical systems or documents in 2 different locations with 2 different people. So multiple people having access to them. So one in the cloud maybe, or one with ShareFile, one with a desktop, or one on a backup disk, and that you're making sure that you've got that duplicate preparation in advance of a disaster. So this is great that it makes it available. I pulled up this screen one more time just because I wanted to make sure that people are aware that through TechSoup.org/Citrix you can find GoToMyPC, which was mentioned just a moment ago by Cameron, in addition to GoToMeeting, GoToTraining, GoToWebinar, and ShareFile through the Citrix program. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up here because we are through with all of our content for today. So thank you so much to everybody who joined us. You will get a follow-up email later on today, or possibly tomorrow, depending on how quickly I can get it out, with the recording of today's webinar and links to the resources discussed and the slide deck. So thank you so much to our webinar sponsor, Citrix, who helped provide the platform for us to present this webinar today. And thank you so much to Cameron, Emily, and Tina for helping present to us about their experiences with ShareFile. And also thank you to Allie on the back end, who helped answer questions and help you with any technical issues. We appreciate you joining us. So please take a moment and complete the post-event survey once our screen is closed so that we can continue to improve our programs. We offer webinars on a weekly basis through TechSoup, so feel free to join us again, and we hope to have you join us next week. Have a great day and stay warm. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.